supposed to read the public disclosure notice. So the meeting is called to order. It's 6:04 and recording is going to begin. And I'm supposed to wait for a recording light. Is that on? It's now being recorded. So the meeting of the Youth Education and Cultural Affairs, Brooklyn CB2 is called to order and is being recorded for access on the CB2 YouTube archive in accordance with the Open Meetings Law. And it is the practice of CB2 to conduct remote meetings with all committee members' cameras on. We encourage public attendees to also leave their cameras on, especially if you will be speaking, and to please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. And in order to have the conversation going and whatever voting would be needed, I'll let people know if topics are open for comment by committee members, board members, or the general public. And if you have questions outside of the public comment time, you can type your questions into the chat and we will try to address them. We're committed to providing access for our neighbors, regardless of disabilities, physical abilities, or limitations. And now the committee secretary will conduct roll call. Oh, Sam, welcome, Samantha Johnson. Okay. Meredith, can you just conduct a roll call, like for everyone on the committee to say hi?
Sure. You want me to read names? Sorry,
and then people will say good evening. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I need a.
Oh, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have any documents open yet to have the list of everyone's name because I
could do that if you want. Okay, it's just this.
Okay.
So I'm Betty Flybush. I'm the chair of the committee and our co-chair. Can you introduce yourself? Oh, she's muted. Okay. That was Dorothea Thompson Manning. And I see on the screen, Nick, can you introduce yourself and then introduce someone else?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Nick Ferreira, board member, and committee member. John, I throw it to you.
John's not a.
I'm not a committee member.
He's a CB2 member. Okay.
How about that?
So throw it to somebody on the committee.
Samantha.
Is she? I saw her name. Samantha. Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, Samantha Johnson, committee member and board member of CB2.
And can you introduce someone else? Or yeah.
I'm trying to see who else. I don't know who's on the calls.
Oscar is our young man.
Oscar? Okay, so I'll pass it to Oscar.
Hi everyone. My name is Oscar Luckett. I'm a committee and board member. I'll throw it to Elizabeth. I'm not sure we've met yet.
No, Elizabeth is
not a board member.
Okay. So Meredith.
That's why. Okay. Yeah.
Introduce Meredith.
Let's see. I'm just looking at the side list here.
Meredith is
Meredith.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hi everyone. I'm Meredith. I'm a committee member and a board member, and the currently discombobulated secretary. But give me a minute, and I will get my stuff together and be ready to take notes.
We didn't hear.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we know that the recording has begun. We introduced community members. People received the agenda via email. Are there any comments from the committee members about the agenda? I do want to add that before the chairperson's report, we want to discuss the statement of district need, which was not bulleted out as a separate discussion. And also at the end of the chair's report, Dorothea Thompson Manning has agreed to facilitate a conversation about future presentations that the committee would like to hear, especially from cultural organizations. So the next item is the presentation from the District 15 PAR group. Maddy Fox will present her organization, and those of you who have been attending our committee meeting know that District 15 has been involved in a discussion about potentially rezoning parts of District 15. That's part of our CB2 geography, which would be 261 and 38. And we've been in conversations with the CEC and with the PAR. So that said, Ms. Maddy Fox, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Betty, and it's very cool to be here. I feel like community boards are the kind of the coolest and the best form of government we have. So thank you all for your work, and again, thank you for having me. I'm going to be joined tonight by another member of our team who wasn't able to make it, but Vanessa McKnight sends her regrets. She wanted to be here as well. So as you may know, there are 7 schools within District 15 that are up for a potential rezone, and it includes 261 and 38, and then also PS 32, PS 29, PS 58, PS 676, and PS 15. I think I named them all. Did I say 29? If I didn't, I think I got all the schools. So,
and these are all elementaries.
Right. So it's only elementary schools. It's and this process came up a year ago or a year and a half ago now almost. And the Office of District Planning of the Department of Education started to put forward a couple of potential proposals last summer. And there was a reaction from across a lot of community members gave feedback that it was going too fast. And there was also concerns that the process wasn't so inclusionary of BIPOC community members and NYCHA residents who are connected to all of these schools. So there was like a community engagement process, but it wasn't being conducted in a way that was really so easy to participate for communities across the impacted zones. So there was community feedback about this, and a suggestion that came from within the community to slow down the process and go about this in a more participatory way. So last March, to cut a long story short, last March we launched a participatory action research project. I'm a parent in District 15. My child is at PS 15, but I'm also on faculty at Brooklyn College, and what I do is this participatory action research kind of work. And so I, in collaboration with a community leader from Red Hook and Matt Gonzalez from the NYU Metro Center, and in collaboration with many community members across Red Hook and Gowanus especially, we proposed and launched this project. So in March, we gathered together a diverse group of parents from across the impacted school zones to form a research team, a community-based research team. And we started meeting, and we have been working and meeting ever since. Through the pandemic, through thick and thin, we transitioned from meeting within a school to meeting, like this. We use Zoom, but we have been working on building our own knowledge around histories and contexts of rezoning, talking with other districts around the city who've gone through similar processes. We've been having we've been conducting community conversations with community members, which kind of like interviews we've been conducting, and we've been spending time at food distribution lines and at open streets events, and building our knowledge around community members' experience of schools, elementary schools, and getting kind of the access to schools perspectives on that process and that experience, and then also getting community members' dreams and ideas and vision for what could be, or what equity would I look and could look like across these 7 schools in the subzone. The 7 schools are, some of them are quite segregated by race and socioeconomic status. So that's one of the core issues that we're working on in this project. We just recently, building on the knowledge we've collected so far, we just recently created, and then we just launched a survey that we're now spreading out far and wide, that we want as many families connected to these 7 schools, families that are either zoned for these 7 schools or who attend these 7 schools, to respond to this survey. So if Taya, if it would be possible to go to the website, I'll just show you. We have a pretty simple website. We've been doing all this, in the midst of a pandemic with sort of unexpectedly limited, or resources limited and constrained in unexpected ways. But we have this website. It's district15powerproject.org, and on it you can easily access the survey in a couple different places. And then there's also, if you click on the how can I get involved, this is a flyer that is actually, it's easy to screenshot or download or share if people want to share that out in different ways via, whatever distribution list or, social media or whatever. And so we've been getting a robust response so far, but we're really looking forward to hearing from as many community members as possible who might be impacted by this potential rezone. And there's some background information, and the site itself has multiple languages and can be kind of read in different languages. So we hope it's accessible. But we're not relying just on this website alone, or just on this online survey alone. We're really spending a lot of time out in community and talking with people. We're very connected to local community organizers and community groups and community-based organizations in building a knowledge and vision for what could be across these schools. And the goal is that by the end of September into October, that we are going to generate a list of recommendations for, and this is the survey that Taya is showing you now, but we're going to generate a list of recommendations to give to the Department of Education, and the Department of Education will use those recommendations to develop proposals for the rezoning. So you could stop the share now, or if you want. I mean, people can go back. And I didn't say before, but just to clarify, this project is a collaboration between the community, Brooklyn College and the NYU Metro Center, and the Department of Education. So that, part of the idea is that the Department of Education and the Office of District Planning are in some way accountable to the recommendations that we will present at the end of this process. When we have a robust enough response from the survey, we'll be looking through those responses and thinking about them in relation to the interviews we are also conducting, and the kind of ethnographic knowledge we're gathering as we're out in community, and we'll be sharing those back out with community to get feedback as we build towards recommendations. So the process itself will be iterative as we move forward. So we wanted to fill you all in about this, get your thoughts and feedback, and also to invite and ask to in whatever way you're willing or that you want to take the survey or spread the word about the survey. There's also other ways to be involved for sure. Anyone who wants to get involved and be involved, you're very welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. So now we'll entertain questions first from the committee. Do we have any committee members who would like to ask a question? Okay, feel free to jump in. So I have a question. So
Betty?
it sounds like what?
Bush, I think Nick Ferreira is trying to speak.
Oh, I didn't.
Hi, sorry, I was delayed. I was just wondering if it was mentioned a timeline for this?
Yeah, so we started in in March, there was a little bit of a delay because of the pandemic. And so the goal is to have recommendations in October. We can't go much beyond that because they, you know, the way the process works, the CEC has to vote with ideally any changes would be in place in time for kindergarten admissions, which begin in December. So we're aiming for October for recommendations.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I have a question which is related to the pandemic. We're reading and we're hearing that families have left the city or certain areas and so on. So we expect that the pattern of the children that show up either for remote learning or
Blended hybrid. Mm-hmm.
Blended hybrid. We're not sure how many children to expect. I think especially in areas where people have the ability to move or to change their situation. So at what point are those numbers, do you anticipate that we'll know how many children are, quote, registered for the schools in terms of like their utilization and capacity? Because one of the driving concerns was that some of the schools were overcrowded.
Absolutely. Yeah, so thanks for that question. Yeah, two of the schools are significantly overcrowded, and we meet with, you know, we're meeting and in conversation with the Office of District Planning many times a week, and you can imagine that question comes up a lot in our meetings with them from the PAR team, and then in all kinds of ways. And the answer that we get is that we won't know those numbers. Those enrollment numbers are very hard to gather. Apparently, you know, that data is apparently very hard to gather until well into the school year. And so we won't know. There's all kinds of, there's enrollment that, and it's going to be even heightened this year because we're just not going to know kind of who shows up until well after the fact. But you know, and we won't know. I think we might have this sense that a lot of people are leaving, and particularly families with you know, resources to leave. But we don't know for sure if that's a temporary or to what extent that's happening, and also kind of the time frame for that. So unfortunately, we have almost no data on that.
Mm-hmm. No, understood, but that's something that is people wonder about. The other thing is that because of the pandemic and the concerns about air and transportation,
yeah,
and the original plan indicated that if the plan was unzoned and you would get a school within those 7 schools within that subzone, that busing would be provided. And now there's more concern about how much busing can be provided, and parents' hesitance maybe in putting their child on a bus. So how does that fit into your survey and your planning?
At this, what we ask in the survey questions about how people get to school and now, and what they would kind of be willing to do. We're hesitant. It's a tricky situation to be conducting this project in the midst of the pandemic, because we all hope, right, that in a year we won't have to be facing some of these pandemic related issues. And we want to be thinking about that future in this project. But at the same time, it's a reality that there are heightened concerns about putting 5-year-olds on buses, and there's also concerns around budget. There's a lot of different concerns. We have to. We anticipate after the survey that we'll need to have a kind of some special focused conversations with community members around some of those issues. And that we'll take those into account when we make our recommendations. But our recommendations are going to be about how we make these decisions in relation to being accountable to equity. And it's going to be up to all of us then, but kind of beyond the scope of this project, to think about how we are both accountable to equity and reconciling that accountability in the context of the pandemic or post-pandemic or whatever we're in. So I don't think it has a direct impact, except for that people's psychological experience right now of thinking about rezoning is certainly impacted.
Mhm. Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there more questions from the committee? I think you have a website or address if people have additional questions for you.
Yes, sure. I'm going to put, we have a district, I'm putting 2 email addresses. Well, this is fine. I'll just put this one in. This comes to our team. And that way you just have one thing to remember, district15powerproject.org. I'm Maddie Fox, and I will also put in my Brooklyn College email here.
Thank you so much. I
Thanks
found
for
it
inviting me.
informative, and I hope that our members did as well. So hearing no further questions, feel free to stay at our meeting, or I know you have children to I don't know, feed dinner, whatever.
Thank
Feel
you.
free to stay or not, whatever
Okay.
you choose.
Thanks so much. Good luck.
Okay, so next we have a representative from the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board that I understand will be talking about youth advisory. Miss Sonia?
Hi, is everyone able to hear me?
Yes.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here today and allowing me to share this information on behalf of the agency. I'm going to share my screen with the PowerPoint presentation. There are links that I'm going to share after the presentation, just so it's seamless. And I'm able to show everyone like the slides and people are able to access the information afterwards. Is everyone able to see my screen now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you. So the New York City Civilian Complaint Review Board is an independent city agency that's tasked with investigating allegations of police misconduct. The CCRB is overseen by a group of board members. So we have 15 people on the board. We have the chair that is appointed by the mayor. We have 5 members that are appointed by the mayor. We have 5 appointed by the New York City Council and 3 designated by the police commissioner. 1 person who is appointed by the public advocate, and the chair who is appointed by the mayor and the city council. So the CCRB investigates certain allegations of police misconduct, and a helpful acronym to remember the categories is FADO, F-A-D-O. So the S stands for force. Force can look like pushing, kicking, the use of a baton, for example. It could look like an officer drawing their weapon, even though they don't necessarily use it or discharge it. The A in FADO stands for abuse of authority. That can look like an officer threatening to call ICE on me, an officer searching me without cause, an officer issuing a summons or arresting me in retaliation. The D in FADO stands for discourtesy. So discourtesy can be inappropriate language, profane language, or rude gestures. And lastly, we investigate allegations of offensive language. Offensive language refers to derogatory language that refers to my race, my ethnicity, identity, such as like religion, sexual orientation, disability status, or what an officer may perceive to be those things. So we share information about the Right to Know Act with youth and adults as well. So the Right to Know Act was passed in October of 2018, and that changed changed the way police interactions occur. So for example, if someone is monolingual, police officers have to provide language access services. During an interaction, an individual is empowered to ask for a business card from the officer. So the business card will have their name, their rank, their shield. It's going to say their command. And on the back of the business card, it's going to let people know how they can submit a comment or complaint, and also how they can request body camera footage. along with the Right to Know Act, in certain situations, and there are some exceptions, an officer has to let the individual know why they were stopped during an interaction, and also letting a person know that they have a right to give consent to a search before it's actually conducted. So where an officer doesn't have the legal authority or justification to search someone, letting the individual know that they have a right to give their consent or not. In so winter of 2018, the CCRB launched its Youth Advisory Council. So the Youth Advisory Council has 19 members, and they're between the ages of 10 and 24. So the Youth Advisory Council members, they serve as ambassadors in their own communities, so sharing information about the agency and how they're able to file a complaint. And these are individuals who are passionate about criminal justice issues and also improving police-community relations. In 2019, it was the spring event that we hosted. It was the first ever youth symposium that the CCRB put together, and it has to do with youth and policing. And we used the insights from that symposium that youth attended to inform our policy report that was released in June, and also to shape the way the agency does outreach and just our operations in general moving forward. Would it be helpful, or how about this? Are there any questions so far? No? So one of the things that the CCRB does in terms of outreach is going into schools, going to youth groups. So a lot of the things that we're doing now is virtual, but still like showing up into those meetings, letting youth know what their rights are if they're stopped by the police, how they can file a complaint, and also letting them know that you don't have to be a certain age to file a complaint with the CCRB. Anyone can file. So you don't necessarily need an adult to file on your behalf, so that individuals feel like they can say something if police misconduct occurs. So we looked at specific complaint data that were received between January 1st of 2018 and June 30th of 2019. And what we found was that there was a disproportionate number of youth that were stopped, and one based on their race and ethnicity. Also, when it comes to the boroughs with those highest complaints where either the complainant or one of the alleged victims of police misconduct was a young person, Brooklyn was in the highest categories. So Brooklyn had the most. It was 36% of those complaints that involved youth. In 2020, so year to date, the number of complaints that the CCRB has received is 2,775. And in terms of local precincts, like where the complaints are coming from, so for the 84 precincts so far, year to date, we've received 84 complaints. And for the 88th precinct, year to date, we received 29 complaints. Any questions so far? One of the things I want. Oh,
Could you repeat those last two data points, the complaints for the 88th and the 84th?
Of course, and the information that I just shared with you is actually on the CCRB website, and I will be sharing that link as well. It's on our Data Transparency Initiative page. I'm sorry, I saw a notification from Webex. So this is on our Data Transparency Initiative page from the agency's website. So on that page, you're able to look up the number of complaints for every precinct in every borough. So for Community Board 2, the 84th precinct year to date, so from the beginning of the year till today, the 84th has 56. For the 88th, there are 29. And to put things in context, the precinct with the highest number of complaints is the 75th with 106, and second is the 73rd with 84. So on that page as well, we break down the complaints by borough. So of all the boroughs, Brooklyn actually has the highest number of complaints. So from the 2,775 that were received year to date, 901 are from Brooklyn. One complaint can have multiple allegations. So in an encounter with an officer, there may be excessive or unnecessary force that was used, discourtesy during that interaction. So it also breaks down how those allegations are coming up. And it might be helpful for people to see, so what are the trends or what are the practices or the tendencies that are coming up when it comes to policing in someone's neighborhood. This year, so the Youth Advisory Council put together a PSA, and it was it was their idea, like they put it together, and it's to inform youth about the CCRB and how they can file a complaint. And I will be sharing the link to that as well.
Ms. Sonia, are you able to talk specifically about the youth in this youth advisory board and how they're recruited and their role in this? Because I think that was the focus of what the committee is interested in.
Yeah, of course. So the applications for the Youth Advisory Council is actually going to go live in the fall, and I'll be sharing the information for that as well. So the Youth Advisory Council has regularly scheduled meetings where they'll come together, and over the course of the year, like one of the things that they did was specifically work on the public service announcement that had to do with informing youth about the CCRB. Mm-hmm. And last year hosting the Symposium on Youth Police Community Relations. If there are any youth who are interested in attending, so everyone.
Can't hear you.
Ms. Banegas, I think we've lost your audio. Could you try speaking again?
Hi, hello.
Okay, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Right.
Maybe rewind one sentence.
Thank you. So every month, the CCRB hosts monthly board meetings open to the public. Anyone can comment if you want to attend and get a feel for the agency as well, or share these community relations or what things are going on in their neighborhood. They're more than welcome to do that. In terms of, I mean, are there any other questions, or is there any other information that I can provide in terms of the Youth Advisory Council? So the applications will be going live soon, and we're gonna have our new cohort coming in this fall.
Mm-hmm. So you'll be sharing that with the community board so we can publicize that as we publicize other entities.
Yes, and I'll be posting those links in the chat.
Great. So are there any questions from members of the committee?
Hi, this is Nick again. Thank you for the presentation. I was at last month's board meeting. I believe it was maybe an emergency one. I was wondering if there was any update on if the NYPD was actually showing up for the hearings. At this point, there was a problem with them refusing to appear.
Right. So while I can't comment on specific investigations, so as an outreach coordinator, like I can share information about the agency, but I'm not an investigator. So from my understanding, officers have been working with the agencies.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Are there questions from community board members who are not members of this committee? Are there questions from anyone else?
Hi. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, who identify yourself if you're speaking?
Hi, my name is Emily Anadu. I live in Fort Greene.
Hello?
Hello, are you able to hear me? Sorry, not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi. I guess it's more of a statement / question. So one, very happy to hear about this review board. I actually wasn't aware that it existed, so excited just about learning more about it. And I guess it's just more a statement, because this week I had the opportunity to attend a meeting in Fort Greene Park with the 88th precinct, just to think about, you know, over policing, how they're responding to things. And it was interesting at best. I think they're obviously trying. I think one of the things that why this part of the meeting was particularly interesting to me, and it's just been on my mind a lot lately, is I don't know how much this is like widely known, but I think when parents think, and I don't have kids, but I have a 3-year-old nephew who's obviously Black. And I think a lot of times when parents talk about having the talk with their kids, they're referring to the birds and the bees talk, and like, when are you going to have that talk? Unfortunately, in Black and brown families, a lot of times the talk refers to, when are you going to talk to your son about how he has to engage with police, and about how they have to basically lower themselves, demean themselves, not speak out, not ask about their rights, because of how police will likely treat them as a result. So I guess I'm happy to hear that this is happening. And I guess I'm just interested in anything I can do or support to help put this in practice. And I realize as I'm talking that I'm not actually making a point. I've just been thinking a lot about the talk. And so it strikes me that a lot of the language about people knowing their rights and people should do this, that often ends badly for Black and brown youth. So, and I hate that there has to be something called the talk, which is literally almost everything against what you guys are trying to do, because it is about telling Black and brown young men in particular, like, careful, because you knowing your rights upsets them and just causes bad things to happen. So, but again, I'm very excited to hear about the work and look forward to learning more and anything I can do.
Thank you for joining our meeting, and thank you for sharing. Are there more questions for Ms. Banegas?
Hi, this is Samantha Johnson. I'm a board member. I have a question in regards to youth engagement in the past few months with COVID. I know that there has been a lot of obviously interactions with police and young people during protests and demonstrations. From whatever information that you can provide, can you state any particular outcomes of what has been resolved of any type of disciplinary action for individual officers, or any type of new practices that they're considering while engaging with the public?
Hi, so in June, the CCRB released our youth report, and we actually made recommendations in that report, like things that had to change in terms of police practices, even things that had to be updated in the patrol guide or in terms of their training when they are interacting with you. So there is a difference in the way an officer would police an adult or do policing with a young person, especially when it comes to, you know, them. Young people, that interaction with an officer, there's trauma that can come from that, and it's a vulnerable situation. So those differences. So there are recommendations that the CCRB proposed in terms of disciplinary actions. I think, I'm not sure if this is exactly what you're referring to. So anyone can file a complaint in terms of like specific case outcomes for that particular complaint. It depends on a number of factors. Like, I can't tell you that a complaint that was filed in July is already closed at this point. So during presentations with young people, we'll explain what the investigation process is. So once you file a complaint, if it's not our jurisdiction, we refer it somewhere else. What does the investigator do? Like using their subpoena power to get footage, getting the body camera footage, interviewing witnesses. One of the updates or changes that happen is that now you don't have to see misconduct firsthand. If you see a video online on social media, and you believe that police misconduct occurred, you can still submit that to the CCRB and file a complaint, and the CCRB will investigate. So I think that's like one of the changes that happened that's like super major for the agency.
Thank you. That's helpful. Did you have a follow-up question, Sam, or is that okay for now?
That's all.
Okay, thanks. I think Sam and Alec came into the meeting a little later after introductions. So can you introduce yourself, please? Sam and then Alec.
I introduced myself, but I don't mind doing it again. I'm Samantha Johnson. I'm a community board member as well as a committee member.
And I think Alec came in later, maybe.
Yep, I'm Alec Duffy, and I'm a public member of the board.
Thank you. Okay. So next on our agenda, and thank you very much, Ms. Banegas, and yeah, that was helpful. Elizabeth Adams from Councilmember Levin's office is here. I had a specific question. As we remember when the building that was the Brooklyn Heights Public Library was sold and there was the library controversy. One of the things, the outcomes of that was that Councilmember Levin brokered an agreement to have a STEM lab or some type of educational entity in the new building. And as the building is coming closer to completion, I wanted a little bit of an update as to where the funding is, who provides the teacher, who's providing the build out of the space. And with these funding now very much in question with everything, where does that funding stand? So thank you for coming, Ms. Adams.
Yeah, thank you for having me and for asking very important questions. So I don't have too concrete of an update. A lot of things, as I said, are in flux, and would love to keep this as an ongoing conversation to check in on. So I can share a little bit of where we are now, and then would also love to take in people's feedback and questions, and can come back with more information and responses. So yes, as part of the deal of the Brooklyn Heights Library, a multi-middle school science lab, a Cadman Plaza science lab, was secured. DOE committed to some funding for it. I think like a few years ago, back in the SCA committed capital funding. And I was trying to get kind of the exact number of where we are with that. But I believe that has kind of been sorted. And where it is now is the developer has the site, and the developer is kind of doing build out of the site now. They will hand over the site to the school construction authority. And at that point, we'll really get into conversations around the use, who will use it and when, so we're waiting for, and just before COVID hit, actually, we were trying to kind of move forward some of these conversations with the SCA, with the school construction authority, and now we're, then COVID hit. So there are some questions around timing, but it should be early 2021 is the last that we heard around when the developer will hand it over to the SCA, and then it'll be their authority. And so that's the timing that we have there. What we want to do kind of now and until then is have conversations with DOE, with the SCA, with community leaders, and really think through the programming, the use, all of these really important questions, so that it is community led and really thought through about what it looks like, who would use it and when, and I think now, especially as we are in a new COVID world, thinking about kind of how that plays into here, and what members of the community and what school members think kind of we should be keeping in mind now.
Thank you, Elizabeth. One of the so some of the conversations that members of CB2 have had this summer, it really focuses especially on on equity, that every type of decision that is being made, every discussion, we have to look at equity. And when we cite this type of facility in Brooklyn Heights, many are concerned, will this be mostly students from Brooklyn Heights who use this, as opposed to students in other schools that might be further away, that don't have access to that type of enriched learning environment?
Yeah, thank you for raising that. I absolutely agree. I think COVID has exposed longstanding racial and economic inequities in our city and has exacerbated them. But these have gone on for a long time. We have the most segregated school district in the country. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by decisions. And so there is a lot of work to do around equity. There is a lot of work to do around racial justice in our school system. I'm heartened. I think the new, I guess not new anymore, but the CEC 13 president, Kamar Samuels, has really committed and taken this on as
So
well.
can I interrupt you there? I think that's an important point. Like, will that entity, that lab or a facility, will that belong in a sense to District 13? So the District 13 community of school leaders, parents, etc., can help shape what happens there, or is it a general DOE type of entity? Do you know if it'll belong to District 13 in a sense?
That's a good question. I don't want to be presumptive, but the conversations that we've had so far was, with SCA and with the superintendent, and with CEC 13. And so I think that's where, these conversations should come from, through and with, and so it is kind of focused through the district.
Okay, so that the District 13 superintendent does have input into this, as well as the CEC of 13. Because when you talked about the DOE is this huge organizational organism, and then who owns it in a sense. So okay, so we know it's District 13. So we appreciate the update, and you'll let us know, I'm sure, as things proceed. Are there any other questions for Elizabeth Adams? And thank you for your time tonight. Anything else for Elizabeth about this? Okay.
Yeah, actually, I have one really quick question. I'm curious more specifically what the use of this space would be.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great question. So the goal of it is a science lab. I think a lot of the schools in the area don't have like STEM or like tech spaces, and so the original planning was for STEM and I believe STEAM, which is also arts. It's the A in that. But in terms of the specifics of what it could look like and what it would include, that is, I think those are the conversations that we want to hear from people now. We want to kind of build that together. So to not kind of pre-impose what would happen in science labs.
Mm-hmm. And you indicated middle schools. Was that something that was part of the agreement, or is that something that has come up?
I'm not sure if it was in the original agreement, but how I've come to understand it was it's for multiple middle schools.
Multiple middle schools. Okay. Okay, so thank you very much, and it will be a continued conversation. So I want to move on to the let's see, we have the approval. I think we need to have some approval of minutes. Yes. June 24th minutes was sent to the committee members. Are there any corrections or discussion, or can we approve it by consensus? And thank you, Ms. Thompson Manning, did a very good job on that. It's appreciated.
Thank you. There was something in the minutes that I was unsure of.
Mhm.
And I couldn't print mine out, so I'm trying to read it on my phone, which is not working.
Mhm.
So anything that I had a question with, what I would do is
We'll
send
let
it to
that
you in
out.
the office board and just take it out because it was
Right.
unclear. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that person is here to clarify what was said.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, anytime it's a detail and we weren't sure, we can rework it so it isn't a gap. So I appreciate your effort on it. It's a job that a lot of people this town, it's a job. Okay,
Like
so
I said,
and it's
I
a
did it to do it, but it's not my favorite thing, I'll tell you that.
right. It's nobody's favorite thing, and we appreciate you. We appreciate Meredith. Okay, so the minutes are approved by consensus, shall we say? Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. Okay, so we have the statement of district needs, and I think some of us got an email saying what they were last year, and then we can comment on some of these. And in my understanding, some of this has changed, like because as time marches on, things change, and sometimes we don't have enough information to really push it. And then with COVID and with the severe budget strains, I myself wonder, can we really recommend some of these things when we need to feed people? It's the priorities have changed. So two of the items that our group has discussed for years now is a new elementary and a new middle, probably in Pacific Park. And we heard during the year the presentation from the School Construction Authority that they were in the pipeline. So does this group feel comfortable taking those priorities out of our district statement?
What would we put in there as sort of information to indicate that they are taken care of, so to speak, so that we don't forget about them and we can hold people accountable if things don't move forward and we tip them out?
Mhm. I think that's like a district office question. I don't feel prepared to answer that, but we know that they're being constructed. We had a presentation from SCA, and we saw some photos of the building going up in the Pacific Park, and I think the elementary school, it's near that Albee Square area. Meredith lives near there. Meredith, do you know what it's City Point, is that it?
The construction of the school on the Albee Square, is that what you're asking
Right.
about?
Mhm. It was X number of floors in a building that was going up.
Yeah, it's still going up.
It's still going up. So I think they're in construction. I mean, they're in progress. I think
Yeah, it looks nearly complete. I mean, they've been working through pandemic,
Mhm.
but I mean, I can't say that I've heard specifically.
Mhm. I mean, we can ask for another update from SCA if we want, but
I think so. I'd like to know their name and their number, like just so that we know they're real.
Mhm.
Like, because this STEM lab, right? It sounds similar. They're putting it inside a private
Mhm.
facility. We know nothing about.
Mhm.
Building's almost done.
I think that's a point well taken. I can ask the district office, and Rob might have some of that information, or we can get it. So yes, I think that's a good point.
I support it removing from the list.
Because we have other priorities. Okay, we had another item that called for that schools should get upgrades of technology and science labs, because we've heard, anecdotally that schools don't have the current technology and equipment that they need to meet the current learning standards that the children. So I found, even though I supported that recommendation, I found it vague. I would rather say we needed tech upgrade in X building because they have no science lab, or something very specific. This was like very general. So what do you all think? And should we try to do some research and see, even to name 1 or 2 schools that really need it, where you have middle school children learning without a science lab? I think that that would be important.
This is Dorothea.
Mhm.
How would we be able to find out which schools we should target? And will we have enough time to do that?
Right, I agree with you. I think that that's something the district office, the district staff can follow up with the superintendent's office, because they all keep spreadsheets of who has what. And it would be in their interest as well. And we can also reach out to the CEC, because that's
So
a parent group and they have children, they have representatives in each school, and I think we can get that information. Remember we had Ayana beyond,
Yeah,
Ayana,
and the super last time, right?
yeah, she spoke to us, I think, when we were at the Y. So that was in the winter, maybe January or February.
Mhm.
And I can reach out to her and ask which schools, you know, according to their information.
at 2 schools that we could name in our district, that would make better sense.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Agree. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll work on that. I can work on that with the office. Okay, high school. Remember we had heard a presentation about high school cafeterias, and some of them needed redesigning, not just for salad bars and things of that nature, but so that students could eat in more quote civilized way, rather than in these long tables with those long benches. It's not like a family type of environment. Oh, we have this edits and revisions. Meredith, this is what I had mentioned to you, that this would be great to respond to. Okay, for our notes. So do we still think renovating or upgrading a high school cafeteria to the food court design, do we want to recommend that in our document?
The presentation that we saw, I think that was at the Brooklyn Hospital, and
Yeah.
they presented it. I'm not sure if that was just a test, or if they were actually put it in certain high schools. I mean, I think it's a good idea, but you know, I'm thinking about how things are going nowadays. I don't know who's going to be able to do what, and what
Right.
really is going to be much more important than some of the other things that we need to think about. But I don't think it'll hurt to at least make the recommendation, because you want the kids to eat healthier and to eat foods they like, and to feel a little bit more of a semi-home setting, as opposed to, you know,
Yeah.
everybody there setting. So
Right.
I don't see it as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, you know, if there's anything else that's more important, then I would not recommend that.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I don't know if you want to add to that or leave it alone, but one of the things I get passionate about food is water, that kids often don't have access to water. And in a lot of high school cafes, they have to pay, you know, $1 or $1.50 for one of those plastic one-use disposable bottles, even though kids supposedly should have water bottles. They don't all have them. So schools could put in something called water jets, so that young people could access water for free from like a healthy type of thing, not a fountain where maybe kids' spit is on it, or, you know, like that. So do people think we should put in water jets in terms of cafeterias? Water jets are like those soda machines you see in pizza places, where you put a glass, you know, underneath a little gizmo, and then an amount of water or soda comes down. We're talking about water, though.
Well, seeing them used just for bottles, and it'll have to be because you have to be careful with bottles.
Right.
Because sometimes people put their bottles right up to the spout or whatever. So it has to be one that there's no contact between what you're going to use and the water that's coming out. And I have seen those. I think that's what's important because years ago I stopped filling up bottles from water fountains because people would take their bottle and stick it right on there, and I says, "That's it for me. I'll just bring my own water." So I don't know how these machines look. So I think it depends on how the machine is made and how sanitary it is, so that there's no contact from anyone else's bottle or glass or cup.
Fair enough. Any
And-
other comments on this?
Yeah, this is Alec. I just feel that it makes a lot of sense what you're saying about this. It feels like it's a little bit more of a priority than the previous one, in that if kids have to pay $1 every day to get a bottle of water, that's obviously that's pretty bad. So that free water seems pretty important.
So maybe we could make that a separate item rather than putting it together with the renovation of the high school cafeterias, so that it could stand on its own, maybe, as a priority.
I think separating the two could serve as the water chat.
Okay. Separate them. Additional. Okay, there was an item about, remember, it's a perennial issue at Brooklyn Tech with the trash, and they don't have enough dumpsters. They don't have room for the dumpsters. There's rodents. They've had all these different inspections. They've never gotten anywhere with getting a better system for the trash. It's almost like a losing battle. I think it's really important because there's rodents on the block and the trash situation is pretty awful. I mean, I would be fine with continuing the recommendation. What does it say here? Brooklyn Tech has over 5,000 students, produces more trash than can be handled within the building.
So I have a question about this. So it looks like our request is a cap. This is capital, right? To renovate the building. I'm wondering.
Not the whole building, just the part that would take the garbage. Yeah.
We'll take trash, right? I'm wondering if this is an opportunity. Does a larger discussion with people who know things about this topic beyond sanitation, of how to reduce waste, how to do this better and different and 21st century, is there an opportunity to have those discussions and get a plan together that maybe renovating a small interior space won't be solving?
Unfortunately, the city has gone backwards in terms of trash, in that they're no longer collecting compost. Like when you take, and schools have been teaching young people how to separate out the food, and sanitation in some districts has been collecting the food and vegetable scraps for commercial composting, and that reduces the garbage tremendously.
Right. So that's disappointing. And I don't think
they removed that program, so it's going to be worse.
Correct. So I don't know. I'm just wondering if our ask should be keeping that conversation alive, because if it has the most trash, it says what? Then anything around produces more than trash than can be handled. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like something has to be done larger than renovating a room, but that's just my 2 cents.
Maybe that's something the district office could have a meeting with someone from the DOE facilities. I don't know if that's something that could be brokered, but maybe we could find out about it to get a little bit more information. and to push it. And maybe there's a group within the school that's pushing this that we could be connected to.
I love that. I think that's great, because I'm just concerned that that's not the solution, that maybe we came up with the solution, but it's not a really viable one. And maybe that's why it hasn't been addressed that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, fair enough. And then our favorite, which is dear to our heart, the Cornerstone and Beacon. We need more after school. We need more childcare. So I think we should prioritize this higher than some of the others, because it's a tremendous need. And the city seems to not have as much money. What is your understanding, Nick, of the money for the after schools and the beacons and that?
Yeah, so obviously, full disclosure, I make a living off of this.
And you're knowledgeable about it, so that's good.
Yes, I'm not asking to line my company or my pockets. Yeah, right now, fortunately, the money for existing contracts for FY21 is there. There are slight reductions to, I think, middle school programs that, like the newer middle school programs, the ones that did not have a summer camp this past summer, that usually get restored every year through fighting with City Hall, didn't get restored this year. And those programs got school year cuts as well. But Beacons and Cornerstones, some Cornerstones actually saw an increase in funds this year. I think there's at least an acknowledgement that they're definitely food hubs and things. So that's kind of where it stands for 21. So I don't see 22 being worse. And I do know that ultimately a lot of the council is supportive of it. A lot of the parents obviously advocate, and in normal times, quote unquote, that advocacy does translate into increased, well, not necessarily increased, but sustaining, I should say, more sustaining. So
But
that's
we
my spiel.
continue to have that item in our list. And is there a way of strengthening the word, the verbiage, so that it's
Well, maybe to the last point of the vagueness of our request for technology upgrades, maybe there are some schools, as we speak to equity issues, that don't have one that we'd want to highlight that would really benefit, instead of keeping it vague. And or, with Cornerstone, if there were any other niches that weren't represented.
Okay. So that could be part of my discussion with Ayana, to see if there are schools that really need this that aren't funded for it. Yeah.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay. And then are there more? Oh, then in the Parks, Cultural, and Other, I think we had a library item. See, I can't scroll this up. Can cultural services, library services? Are there comments about library services? Does everyone see this on their screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So should we leave it? Should we change it?
I think we just updated it last time.
You're right, we did.
Seems good to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything else on the statement of needs that people want to add that maybe haven't been listed by our committee?
I was thinking of something. Sorry to be so talkative.
Oh, wait, it's fine.
I was wondering, and it is speaking to the current situation we're in, and bringing up maybe some inequity issues. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for funding for schools. I don't know if it's designating people in sort of a case management role, but very specific to technology access and internet access. It really is a utility. I mean, I think now it should be considered a utility. It's not a luxury. And when we went remote, it really exposed, like other inequities, this vast gap. And while DOE found some money and they did a pretty good job, that doesn't mean that the message gets out, that the families actually get the device, that the device is sufficient, for their needs. So yeah, that's just where my head is at with devices in the hands of our students and internet access in our homes, and from an educational perspective.
Excuse me, Garcia. We're talking about the library right now. Is that correct?
No, I think we just said, are there other things?
Oh, so Nick, what you're talking about is what additional supplies for students, electronic supplies? Is that what you're talking about?
So that'd be part of it, but I'm wondering if the schools almost need people in the role of making sure families have access to the internet and connecting them to it, and like making it happen. Because handing somebody a device isn't enough, and initially the DOE handed people devices thinking they had internet, and then had to give them ones with hotspots because they don't. And a lot of these families, I know just from experience, got the free maybe 3-month offer or 2-month offer or 1-month offer, and those have run out and they cannot afford to have internet. And that means kids they really can't engage in their education to the level that, children in a middle class household can. And so it speaks to inequity to me. So I don't know if that was clear or rambling, but I don't know how to word it for this. It's just a need.
I think, well, it's access, it's broadband, it's getting access to people's homes. I've read that in the homeless shelters, the kids who live in the homeless shelters don't have access to this. So could you take a stab at drafting like a sentence or two? Because as you say, it's more than the device itself, like giving out devices like a store. It's helping families connect, and it's establishing more broadband or bandwidth or whatever that is called.
Anybody have any input around that? Any ideas around that before I take a stab at any language?
I mean, one it could be looked at as like similar to a model of the free school lunch program or the school lunch program, so that if you need assistance, there's an application process potentially where you, like, in the worst case, you'd actually have to submit a bill, or they just have a flat like rebate per month, like $70 or something, that if you apply and are accepted, that you just receive from the school system.
Oh, I'm so glad I asked that question. That to me sounds awesome, and has like a direct tie to schools when you compare it to like the lunch program.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you could, anybody just give it a stab, you can write to me and Taya, and we'll get it into this document.
Okay.
Okay, that was really good, because it's like food. I mean, people absolutely need internet access, and the DOE sends all these surveys out and all these things, and people who don't have access and are not getting the information. So,
And then they have no voice on top of everything else then.
absolutely. Okay, so we're up to the part of the chairperson's report. I'll try to be brief, and then Dorothea will lead us in a conversation about the cultural, because we need to always keep an eye on our cultural partners. So I wanted to share that in the executive meeting in July, instead of doing like liquor licenses and the usual landmarks and the usual agenda items, the whole meeting was devoted to concerns about equity and race and how all of this plays out in our district. And the most important takeaway for me is that in considering the district needs, we have to look at it through a lens of equity, and not just certain projects that, you know, we think would be a good idea. So we'll keep that first and foremost. And it was a very, it was a thoughtful meeting to step, you know, with everything that's happening, to step away from the usual agenda items and think more deeply. We want to give life to the idea of actions and not just words saying this would be good or that, but really, as we're trying to do, parse it out and what actions are needed to get us closer to this. And our chairperson of CB2 is saying that for our September 9th meeting, put that in your calendar, September 9th, instead of you know, the committees have been meeting on Webex, and I think we're doing a little better job than initially. We're getting used to this platform, but he wants to do something called a wellness check. I'm not sure what it'll look like, but again, it's not going to be the typical committee reports, and I'm not sure what it'll look like, but we want to see that everyone's okay and kind of come together through the WebEx platform, and kind of see where we go from here. We're not even sure that everyone does the WebEx or, again, has access. We haven't heard from all of our members yet. We hope everybody is well. So that's what's coming September 9th. Okay. And then I wanted to share, talking about food and free lunch, just to let people know in your communities that even people who are not low income, so in other words, everyone who had a child in the public school in this last year will be getting what's called a pandemic EBT card. And some people feel, and for $420, and that's significant. I mean, even for a working family, $420 for each kid, come up to $1,000 very easily. So some people feel, you know, fortunately they don't need it, but it can't be transferable. So if you talk to people about this, some people are forming mutual aid societies or going to Costco or going to places with like grocery lists for other families. So it's a way of sharing the $420 per child. Also, if people go to green markets accept this card, it's like a debit card. And then on a personal note, some of you might have read about outdoor learning and so on. I've been involved in some advocacy groups to look at schoolyards, parks, other places for outdoor learning in adequate weather, because we know that the disease is more the air quality in the buildings is of concern. So if we can keep kids outside as long as possible, that would be a good idea. And we saw some movement on the part of the mayor and the chancellor. So I think that's my report. So I will hand this over to Ms. Thompson Manning for discussion about the cultural.
Hi everyone. I just had to plug in. Looked like it was getting very, very. Hopefully, I'll be able to get through this without running out of, whatever. One of the things that of places that organizations that we could use to make presentations, and there was a list I think that was included in one of the emails. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give the name of the organization, a little tiny bit about it, and discuss it and figure out which ones we think would be more beneficial for us moving forward. Probably something that we have not heard from before, or something that's, a little different that we could get more input as to what's being done in our community. So the first one was Basis Independent. And that's a school, that's the one that's going up on City Point. And it's going to be for grades, from kindergarten through the second grade. We have had several independent schools, so whether or not we would want to include them again is something that maybe we could discuss. The other one is very interesting, called Brooklyn Boat Works, something I had not heard about. And what it is it teaches students how to build a boat. And it seems like there's a group of students, about 12 students. I'm not sure how they get together, especially now. But anyhow, they have blueprints that they have to follow, which means that they really have to get, pretty proficient in math and drawing. Now, I'm not sure whether it takes place through the student year or program. The other one is the Brooklyn Public Library, which, we hear about all the time. But there's something in the Brooklyn Public Library called Center for Fiction. And what it is, it seems like if it's going to be workshops or reading groups, just talking about fiction works that come out. It may be a little bit more involved than that, but I did not go into it that thoroughly. The other is Divine Angels Wellness Center. That is, they're reaching young people living in temporary housing, group homes, shelters, and detention centers. And their goal is to try to help them develop self-confidence, learn how to be entrepreneurs, and other things that, can maybe help them get into a better situation as things improve in their life, or as they, depart from high school. Another one was Pastor Zach Martin. I opened it up, and it said family of 4 following God, and it said it was unsecure website, so I did not look into it any further. I'm just letting you know. The last one is Teens for Food Justice. And this is the workshops that I know Betty's going to probably say, oh yeah, we need to do that. So it's the students that put together the gardens so that they can provide food for different schools, and I guess maybe take some home. I'm not really sure exactly how it works. So what we could do is I could just say the name again, and we can just say whether or not we would like to do it, or we can just bypass it. How would you like to proceed?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Just name each one, and we can discuss it or opine about it. Yeah.
Okay. Basis Independent, the new school coming up at City Point. Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, recommendations, or what?
My thinking originally, when the board office asked me, do I want them? Not really. Their tuition is something like $50,000 a year. It's not what we really want to deal with. But I know when they started their upper school in Red Hook, the community advocated for full scholarships for some of the kids from NYCHA housing in Red Hook. So I thought that would be an angle that if they presented to us, we could say, what is your financial aid? How are you outreaching and telling people they could apply, and there would be a few needs-based slots. But other than that, I'm not particularly interested in a school that costs so much money.
Any other comments?
I support.
Hearing, oh, go ahead, Alex.
I support that.
Did you support having a presentation?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I supported what Betty said.
Okay.
That-
All right. Let's move on to Brooklyn Boat Works. Comments?
I like that. This is Santia.
Hi.
Hi, Santia.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm sorry for joining late. I miss you guys.
Yes, you too.
Missed you too.
I mean, my opinion is I think I would like to hear what they say because I didn't know they had something like that. And I'd like to know how they teach the children, the students, I should say, how to get together and pull something off like this and what happens with the finished product and all of that. So that to me sounds pretty good. I'd like to hear about that.
Agreed.
I think we should have them, but I would encourage you to lower your expectations as I've already met them.
Oh.
Who is that, Nick? Okay, Nick. Hold on. How does the group feel? Is that one we could possibly look at? Because we don't know how many we can put on, but I just looking at the possibilities that we could maybe have them available. Yes.
Question. This is Samantha. I have a question. Do you know if this particular group is active right now, and what that capacity looks like as far as their activities during COVID?
Sorry, I couldn't understand you. I don't. You said something about whether the group is active.
Yes, if
I
they're doing
would not
anything
know
as of yet.
because the way things are going now, everybody is doing things some kind of way remotely. So I would just, I'm not going to make an assumption. More than likely, if they cannot present, if they cannot show us something, then they would probably tell us. That's something that we ask. How are they continuing the program during COVID? And I'm quite sure they can let us know.
This is Sarah from the district office. They specifically pivoted their programming twice, once in response to Black Lives Matter and once to make all of the offerings fully remote.
What is this?
So you're saying they can teach the children boat building remotely?
I'm not Nick's smiling. I'm not sure it's probably not quite boat building, but I got the impression that they've transferred some of their team building exercises to a remote context.
And we also know that rowing people can still do in COVID if you're apart from people X number of feet and wear a mask. So I know people that still row.
Actually, the Brooklyn Waterfront Volunteer Kayak hut and a stand is open again for that reason.
Oh, we'll put that down as something that we would look into. The other one is the Center for Fiction. Any thoughts, comments?
And just to be really clear about that, the Brooklyn Public Library and the Center for Fiction are actually separate entities. The Brooklyn Public Library wanted to offer specific updates on a few items: the Adams and Southside Libraries, the Brooklyn Heights and Walt Whitman projects, the merger with the Brooklyn Historical Society, and post-COVID reopening. And Center for Fiction was more of a general introduction to their really amazing programming.
So then we'll talk about the library then. What about updates with the library, which we usually have? Any objections, or how do you feel about that?
Yep.
No comments?
Yes.
They merged, in some way they merged with the Brooklyn Historic Society, so I think we want to understand how that merger works and,
All right.
a bit more of that.
So we'll consider right now for consideration would be Brooklyn Boat Works and the library, just the plain library updates. The next one is the Center for Fiction. And I wasn't sure exactly what they do, but they just made a comment about they have writing workshops and reading groups. And I think they just let people know what some of the latest fiction books are available or out for reading. Any thoughts or comments?
They have free programs as well as membership, and they have a facility that's right next to the Mark Morris. They have a bookstore and workshops, some of which cost and some of which you can join on Zoom or Webex. And they have interesting series. For example, they have about Puerto Rican authors. They have LGBTQ authors. They have a wide range of discussions. So I thought it would be interesting to hear more about it.
Okay. Anybody else? Everybody else okay with that? I mean, any objections? Okay, so that's a possibility. The next one is Divine Angels Wellness Center. Thoughts, comments?
I'm interested.
I'm definitely interested in hearing from
And for the thoughts?
I'm interested in that as well.
Does anyone know of them particularly or have worked with them? No. Okay. We could hear from them, I guess.
For them because
Yeah.
We have so many students that do live in temporary places, and how do they get along? What's being done to provide for them? And since our focus is on youth, I think it would be good to hear some of the youth in these kind of type conditions are being helped.
I agree. You said wellness center, and I think
Yeah.
that we could use a lot more wellness centers for all of us,
Okay.
but certainly youth in need.
So that'll be for consideration. And the other one was Pastor Zach Martin, and I tell you, I didn't go any further with that. I personally don't feel that it's what I would like to hear from the community for our committee. All it said was a family of 4 following God.
I can offer.
I wouldn't go into the website because it said it was unsecure, and I can't take that chance. I just left it. I don't know what else they have to say. I didn't care that much to find out.
Yeah, I can offer some context on that one as well. Zach was actually an invited speaker to a different committee, and for the life of me, I can't remember which one right now. But he was specifically at that committee meeting, he was specifically speaking on the topic of social justice initiatives in the district.
Okay.
And the suggestion was made for him to reach out to Betty, to this committee.
I see.
But
so
I don't
he was speaking
more than that.
about social justice. Like I said, I didn't go on the website to see what else was.
This is Samantha.
That little bit of information, I didn't want to go through it. Yes, Samantha.
Yeah, so also a little context to Mr. Zach Martin. He's also the founder and CEO of Trellis, which does youth engagement under you could say, sort of a social justice lens. I've worked with them in the past. I do think that I would like to hear from some of the youth, not necessarily from him, to see some of the work that they have done around COVID. And also, they've partnered with a lot of other partners in neighborhoods, and most of the young people come from NYCHA, so it is something I am interested in. I say that with a little bit of reservation because of Mr. Martin's, his presentation of doing other things around social justice. But I would love to hear from the youth if we can get one of them to speak on some of the work that they've been doing and the purpose of what they're doing when they go back to school, things of that nature. That would be something of interest, but I'll defer to the rest of the group.
Well, let me say that if we choose him, that if we agree, whatever that would be, that we be what we would like to hear and whether or not he could provide that.
Oh, Ms. Thompson Manning, we've
How
lost you.
best she adds to them. Oh, sorry. That's what I
We
said.
only lost you for about one sentence. Though.
Oh, I was going to say that based on what Samantha said, that if we decide to have Pastor Martin, that we be very specific as to what we would like to have presented. And maybe he would like to speak about his views on social justice, but maybe we would probably say that we would want to hear more from the students that he works with. So I'm saying if we have him, we need to be very specific on what it is we'd like him to present, if everyone is in agreement with that.
That sounds fair.
And the last one is Teens for Food Justice.
I had suggested that last year that we could actually visit a school that has the hydroponics lab. So, you know, we talk about these things, but to actually see it in action and have a student take you around is great. But if we're not visiting a school, it wouldn't be quite as great. But if we were able to, it's changed. It's at the Urban Assembly School on, is it on Gates? I think it's on Gates Avenue. And it's a remarkable place where kids learn to grow food hydroponically and then they can take some home.
Yeah, I think regardless of if we can get in the building, it's probably worth listening to. I have met with them many times. I almost worked with them, but we didn't end up working together. But it is a remarkable program, and it is, I think, very timely as well. And it's empowering people to grow food, sell food, share food, make smart decisions about what you buy and how you budget for it. So yeah, I think it's just a really great program, and the more people who care about it, the better.
So let me say this about the Teens for Food Justice. It sounds as if you're saying that if we get an opportunity to visit a site, I'd like to do that as opposed to just having a presentation. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'd like to hear that anyway, but I think this site is quite remarkable. I wouldn't have imagined it, you know, just seeing pictures. So, but I think we should hear from them. And what Nick said, he's interacted with them, and especially if they can get a young person to be part of that conversation, because then we can see what their experience with the program has meant to them and their family in terms of their food choices and so on.
Yeah, and they may be able to provide some visual, so I think it would be great.
Okay, that's the end. Well, we didn't take a vote, which I don't think we need to do. It seems as if we have interest in just about everything. But I would say if we start to reach out, that maybe we would want to reach out to the Divine Angels Wellness Center as one of the first people we'd like to reach out to, just because of what's going on now, and it would be, I think, appropriate to do that. And also the Brooklyn Boat Works, regardless, because also we're talking about kids, teens. And so I think those two would be maybe the first ones that we would like to reach out to. And then after that, of course, the library, because we do want to know what's going on with the library. And in conjunction with the library, the Centers for Fiction, which could be a two-part thing, the regular library and then a speaker for the Center for Fiction. I think that would maybe round two of who we'd look out for. And the last group, I'm just putting them in groups because that's just what I'm doing. It doesn't, matter how it actually comes out, would be only Pastor Zach Martin, if we can get him to do what it is we would like to do, and we probably should discuss that. And the Teens for Food Justice. I would say what we could we could either do the Teens for Food Justice next or the Basis Independent. I'm not sure which one. Since we can't have, no one really knows what's going on with the schools right now. And we're talking about maybe seeing if they're going to provide full scholarships and everything else. I don't know how much we're going to get. We're just going to find out what's going to be happening in, you know, COVID, what they can do, what they can't do. So we may want to consider.
I would just, Dorothy, I would just,
Go ahead.
we have to find that for everybody. My gut tells me Teens for Food Justice on Gates is operating because they're not going to let all thousands of dollars die.
Okay.
So, you know, people have to take care of the farm.
Okay, so that would probably be maybe before Basis Independent. I'm talking about how we reach out, because if we can't get someone, then we got to reach out to someone else. So I was just grouping them in, you know, pairs.
Just a note for scheduling. So I've been taking notes through all of this. I think with the first 4 that you listed, that'll cover September and October, and then scheduling gets kind of tricky for this committee in November and December anyway. So
in November.
Yeah.
You know.
And we also have to see what's going on just in the world. So
yeah,
another thing.
So if we could do it for the next couple of months, at least we'll have something, and we'll worry about the end of the year at the end of the year, because we don't really have too many meetings. It's hard for us in November and December anyway. So we may be able to just get one group in around that time, if possible.
Sounds great.
Is this okay with everyone?
Well, actually, sorry. I have one thing to throw into the mix, not to throw everyone off after we've already decided, but one thing I had in mind, and something I would love to see, is some youth voter engagement organizations come and present before the November election. One I had in mind is the League of Youth Voters. It's somewhere in Dumbo, in districts, definitely. I know there are a couple other nonpartisan groups that could definitely help to bolster voter turnout in our district, especially in my district.
Can you send Taya some of the names of the groups so she could see what's available or get some information?
Oscar, I used to work for League of Youth Voters, so.
Really? Very funny.
So Oscar, talking to Oscar, is your school opening in person or on the computer this year?
4 out of 5 days of the week are going to be online. So, you know, I'm making
So you
do.
get to have your senior year 1 day a week.
Yes, I'm excited for it.
All the best to you and your senior year. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so it is. Yeah. Dorothy, did you?
I'm finished. There's nothing else for me to present. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. No, that was good to really go through each one. I thank you. So, are there any other comments from non-committee members? Non-committee members? Okay, I don't know who some of these people are. Okay, so I think we're ready to adjourn. Some of us have some little follow-up work to do. So I hope everybody continues to be well, and we'll see you on Zoom not on Zoom, on Webex on September 9th. And we wish our young people and our parents in this group a good beginning of school. We hope school opens, and we hope that everyone stays well. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Dorothy.
7:48. Okay. Thank you so much.
Get a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay. So long, everyone.
Have a good